Okay, I reckon I'll just get started with an intro about myself, and then we'll move on to you, Maria, and people can join the booth as we go.
Okay.
Yeah, so oops, is my mic's working, right?
It is.
Yeah, okay, good. um, So I think it would be nice to start off with a little introduction. So obviously, Vertis and Sky Energy are partners in the Board Now program. But I think people that are joining our booth might not know Vertis and also the recent new product that you've launched. So
Mhm.
maybe just want to start with a little introduction about yourself, Maria, and also about what Vertis does specifically.
Okay. So thank you very much for having me, Maxime. My name is Maria de la Rica from Vertis Environmental Finance. As Maxime mentioned, we are partners with Sky Energy in the Board Now program. And well, just to give a little bit of background about my company, Vertis is a company that was one of the pioneers in environmental finance markets. It was created 20 years ago, helping companies finance emissions reductions investments. But today, Vertis is an organization that has, let's say, two missions. The first one is helping organizations to understand and operate in environmental markets. And secondly, we help organizations in moving towards a net zero growth model. So on the one hand, we work on the environmental compliance markets for different industries. And on the other side of our business is related to climate action, sustainable aviation, renewable energy, and everything that has to do with voluntary action.
Thank you. Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about your move to the voluntary market today. But before that, can you tell me a little bit about Vertis's sustainability strategy?
Sure. So Vertis is actually a carbon neutral company already since 2017. And since last year, we are also plastic neutral. So we have a set of internal measures to reduce our impact on environment, such as the Green Office and Plastic Free Initiative, the use of hybrid vehicle fleet, and a policy to choose the most sustainable transport option where possible. We have been measuring our greenhouse gas emissions impact for some years now, and of course, we have seen, as many other companies, a very big fall of emissions in 2020. This was, of course, due to the restrictions, so it shows us how much of our impact comes from moving around. Um, this crisis has actually taught us some lessons in terms of increasing our efficiency without increasing our impact on environment, and we are definitely looking into applying those lessons learned in the post-COVID era. However, I wanted to stand out that one of our biggest accomplishments in terms of sustainability is not really about us, because our impact is relatively small due to the nature of our activity, but rather in the services that we provide to our clients, with whom we work to understand their particular challenges and help them address the most pressing topics in terms of decarbonization. So,
Yeah, that's, I think, a very good bridge to your most recently launched product. So you're moving away, or not away actually, but you're expanding on the
yeah.
compliance compliance market. Can you maybe, before we dive into the why and how, can you tell us the difference between a compliance market and a voluntary market? How is that different for you as an organization?
So it has always been in our DNA to help organizations moving towards minimizing their environmental impact. Right from the creation of Vertis, we have always been providing carbon strategy services for a long time now. But it is true that a lot of our time was dedicated to compliance markets, helping organizations comply with their environmental regulations, to make sure that there was no issues with compliance, for example, in the EU ETS or other markets. In Vertis, we wanted to reactivate the other side of our business, dedicate more people and resources to something that our clients were demanding. We didn't want to lose the focus on the compliance market, but on the other hand, we saw that the voluntary market demand from our clients was growing, and that they wanted to go beyond compliance. And this is why Vertis decided to create Strive. Avi, if you want to show Strive's website. Strive is a specialized brand focusing on climate action products. And this brand will be covering the services for net zero advisory, renewable energy solutions, emissions reductions project development, carbon offsetting, and other climate products. So we're really happy with this launch that has been released less than 1 month ago, and it's already working in an extensive number of projects and services for our clients.
Perfect. And I imagine that this is a growth market for you as well, with more and more companies going into carbon reduction, carbon offsetting, etc. In your opinion, why, from a environmental perspective, right? Why is that voluntary market so important?
So from our perspective, we see that it is something that the clients are demanding. We see, especially if we focus in the aviation sector, we realize that a lot of actors in the aviation sector want to go further, want to compromise to reduce their environmental impact and reduce their emissions. And even more, the final users of aviation want to explore ways of reducing their impact from traveling. And this is how we got to Sky Energy and the Board Now program.
And so you mentioned aviation specifically. Why do you find it important to focus on aviation? Because I know, I mean, for us, it's clear, right? But you have a much broader perspective than that.
Yeah, in fact, aviation has been one of Vertis' historic clients. And we started providing services for aviation in the EU ETS compliance market, both defining carbon strategy and on the technical and legal issues of compliance. But as I mentioned, we realized that aviation has reached a point where it wants to go further. It wants to explore other solutions, other in-sector solutions, apart from complying with their legal obligations. They have the option to offset their emissions, but the aviation sector has been claiming already for some years for in-sector solutions. And we see that final users also want to focus on making their traveling more sustainable. So I think right now there is a really big momentum for SAF. There's a lot of things going on, regulations being released, and we think it's a very good moment to be talking about SAF and these solutions such as Board Now.
Yeah, so you mentioned SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. And of course, this is one element that companies have in their options to reduce and offset. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit further from your perspective about why sustainable aviation fuel specifically is a good option for well, on one hand, the aviation sector, but on the other hand, of course, companies with a footprint in the aviation industry, and maybe also even in the broader context of carbon offsetting and reduction options.
In fact, aviation has seen the launch of Corsia very recently by ICAO, which is a global offsetting scheme to address the emissions from international aviation. And this is great. This is fantastic. However, the sector itself wants more and sees SAF as one of the main pillars to decarbonize the sector. Also, some actors want to go beyond Corsia and their offsetting obligations. Some actors or some airlines even want to offset the totality of their emissions, or even do something that makes a difference in terms of technological progress. So, as I said, the industry itself considers SAF as one of the four main pillars on which aviation will rely to get to this objective of reducing its emissions until 2050. And we've seen governments working on policies to bridge the price gap of SAF with respect to conventional fuel. We have seen recently the EU refuel proposal intending to set a blending obligation. We have the regulation in the US, the RFS, and the California low carbon fuel standard. So we see a lot of potential. We see a lot of possibilities of using SAF to decarbonize the sector, but the scale up, the barriers that we are facing today are really big, and it's a really big challenge. So I think these kinds of initiatives are really positive.
Yeah, so you and Vertis as an organization chose to partner with Sky Energy on the Board Now program. And maybe for our audience here who maybe haven't joined one of our earlier booth sessions, the Board Now program is a program for companies that want to reduce their footprint from aviation. So either through because of their business travel or because of their cargo. And through the Board Now program, they can purchase sustainable aviation fuels, which will be put into the airport system on their behalf. And the way that we set up the program enables new production capacity of sustainable aviation fuel. And you've just elaborated on the importance of SAF for the aviation industry, but also for companies. Can you maybe tell our audience here why you chose Board Now, specifically why you chose to partner with us?
So we see Board Now program as a very good opportunity for first moving organizations who have an interest not only in reducing their corporate emissions, but also to support the scale up of a renewable source of energy and contribute to this energy transition. So, as I said, we do see SAF as a very promising option to decarbonize the aviation sector, but although the technology is readily available, the volume that has been produced in the past years is yet very reduced. To boost the scale up and the reduction of that price gap with conventional fuels. So the policies that I was mentioning help, but still we see the need of a combination of measures to scale up SAF. So I think this is a very good initiative to collaborating, closing that price gap, and also giving the opportunity to organizations of reducing their emissions from traveling, from flying.
Yeah, and I think especially regarding that last point, so the price gap needs to be closed, right? And we need to get more production of sustainable aviation fuel. That's a very clear need from the aviation industry. But from the perspective of a corporate, there's also a need, right, for carbon reduction and reducing the aviation footprint. So, given your broad experience in, advising companies on strategies and tools to reduce and offset, could you maybe tell us a little bit more about what role SAF could play in a corporate strategy, and also what you would recommend a company to do, what kind of steps to take when they are first starting to look at sustainable aviation fuel?
Yes. We like to recommend our clients aiming to reduce their emissions in general, not only their aviation emissions, to use a combination of solutions. The first one, of course, being designing a strategy to reduce them as far as possible internally. However, while the reduction of emissions from other sources can be easier to tackle, the reduction of emissions from traveling is always a challenge for organizations, because sometimes you are limited by the availability of options. So normally the most easy option is to try to reduce the need to travel. However, we know that there will still be some need to travel, and for those organizations already making this effort to measure and to try to reduce their emissions as far as possible, we also recommend to either offset the remaining ones. But if we are talking specifically about aviation emissions, we like to introduce the Board Now program. We like to talk to them about the Board Now program, because we believe introducing the possibility of participating in a program that can support the scale up of a technology that we believe is very promising for reducing aviation of the sector is a fantastic idea. It helps them engage with their clients. It helps them engage with their workers through an initiative that is innovative, let's say.
Yes, and I fully agree with you. The reduction should come first, right? And even when we look at sustainable aviation fuels, we know what kind of role they can play in transforming this industry. But if we realize that sustainable aviation fuels at this moment are 0.1% of global fuel use, then you know what's challenge lies ahead of us, right? So anything that we can do in terms of decreasing the use of aviation services is going to help us achieve that goal of 100% renewable fuels, or a certain percent of renewable fuels, at least in the near term. So fully agree with you there. I think we need to start wrapping up since these sessions were cut short. So unless somebody in our audience have a question, if so, feel free to drop them in the chat. I would like to point everyone to Vertis's new website, which Avi put in the chat, which is Abby, you just put
Strive.earth.
strive.earth, yes.
Yeah.
Abby just put it on the chat. You can click on the link, check out the website and the voluntary services that Vertis offers, and feel free to reach out to us to bring you into contact with Maria if needed. Thank you very much, Maria, for your time this evening on our end of the world, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.